a couple of minutes to join. Manish, did you have any slides you wanted to put up?
Yes, I'll share my screen. I've just put the recording on just sort of for people who couldn't join or will be late. So I hope that's okay with people. Yeah, we normally record our sessions. Oh, I see a lot of familiar names now. Emma's here. Hi, Emma. Emma Duke Williams.
Hi, sorry.
Okay, maybe the screen is visible now, or is it popping up?
Yeah, it's just, for me, it's a little bit blurry. It's
Oh,
just
no,
coming.
it's not in presentation mode, so hopefully now is better.
Perfect. Yes.
Super.
Shall I do I'll do a little introduction for you, Manish, and then we'll get going.
Please.
So welcome, everybody. Thank you very much for coming. And today we're going to hear from Manish Malik. So Manish comes from an engineering, education, research and practitioner background with a focus on technology-enhanced and physical learning environments. He's the founding chair of the ALT South Group and a founding member of the UK and Ireland Engineering Education Research Network. Also, he's currently a visiting professor at McGill University, Canada, which he does alongside his role as Faculty Director of Teaching and Learning at Canterbury, Christchurch University. And he has loads of research interests. He spans self-cone, socially shared regulation, threshold concepts, computer orchestration, and generative AI in engineering education. Manish, please take it away.
Thank you so much for this. Yeah, so I just wanted to share some results from a study that I have conducted at Canterbury, but also outside Canterbury, because there's been requests for doing this kind of training for people in other institutions. So I've just collected that data, and I'm presenting a framework that I've built for working collaboratively with generative AI. And it's a framework which I developed when even O1 was not out. So some of you may find whatever I'm saying is something that you already do, but without knowing or calling it in that way. But I think putting a name to things is important so that we know what we are doing, and so that we can replicate and get others to do the same. So that's what we've done here. So I'm going to just sort of give you an overview of today. And then get started. Let me progress onto the slides. So first of all, what I would like to do is just to get to understand how you guys are using generative AI, what prompt frameworks, etc. you use, and we can do that through the chat, sort of exchange that information, and then I'll introduce to you the mind metaphors that I have come up with. But I want to do it in a different way. First, I'll try and simulate that through real mind. So I'll be the prompt, and you'll be the model, if you like, and we'll generate something in your head, and we keep that as a fun activity today. But later on, I'll be showing you the results from people's perceptions, staff perceptions, based on creating things like notes, learning outcomes, questions, basically teaching material. So it is kind of run-of-the-mill stuff, but it's important to see what happens once these things are created. How do people feel about it? Do they wish to keep on working on it, that they're not that perfect yet, or they are happy to use it? That's what I was interested in, to see after the training where the content has reached within the one session, and is it ready for them to use, basically. So that's the kind of thing. And at the end, we'll have some question answers. So in the chat, and I don't know how I will see it, I might have to switch off the presentation mode, but in the chat, please, for all the present audience, if you could just say if you use any prompt framework, or if you have a particular way of using your favorite generative AI tool, such as ChatGPT, Claude, or whatever you use. Do you have a specific way of using it or prompting it? Do you use it in a structured way, if you like? And if so, what is it? in the chat, please. And I'll have a look at it as well.
I was going to say I can read them out for you if that helps when we get some.
Yeah. Okay, so you're generating images, but in your prompting techniques, do you use any frameworks for prompting? You may have heard of some prompt frameworks. Is that what you use, or you just nudge it to produce something you want? Is what I'm interested in. Okay, so Michael, you're saying that the prompts are not that useful. So hopefully, what I'm going to share with you may add to that. Maybe, yeah. So let's see. There is another response from George. Use the CAVE framework, which is context, action, variables, and evaluation, which is somewhat useful sometimes, not all the time. Okay, frameworks, not prompts. Okay. And I write my prompts in a way that tries to get around the way the generative AI takes things literally. Okay, so you make it, yeah, with more nuance. Yeah, the prep and edit framework. Yes, I've seen that in your videos, Tig. And don't use a framework, but still help student design good prompts. Okay, super duper. Excellent. So I'll come back to my slides now. Thank you for sharing that with us. Or maybe the slides already shared, yeah. So when you're using, again in the chat, when you're using your generative AI chosen platform, what describes the quality of the responses that you get in the chat, please? And Lucinda, if you can help me with the reading out part that you suggested.
Yeah, no problem. So we've got Deirdre Daly, who says mansplaining, LOL. And Kenji has relevance, depth, accuracy, and source. George, non-consistent, bit of everything then, I imagine. And Mitchell, competent and verbose.
Competent and verbose, okay. Yeah,
and
it certainly can be, yeah, verbose.
Something from Emma. Tend not to use a named framework per se. Through reading some of the frameworks, I think I do that anyway. I treat it as I treat a student who's struggling, look at the answer, and then try to extend their answer. I use the free version of Copilot we get with M&S, the Microsoft account, as that's what staff and students have access to. And yeah. Tig, waffly, meandering, basic, and occasionally excellent.
Okay. And I think Emma touched upon this. If the response is that like that of a student, or if that is wrong, what do you do next? And Emma touched upon it. I think people may also be doing that kind of thing, nudging, if you like, it towards the right answer. So I won't bore you in getting you to type your answers with that. But if you feel that you have something different, please do add to the chat. And listen, if you find something that's different, please let us know. What verbs describe your use of generative AI when you are using it?
And just there's a question from Mitchell. I hope I'm pronouncing your name right. Just asking, what do you mean by wrong? Like factually wrong, or just not what you were after?
It could be both, but yeah, in either case, what you do. Yeah, I mean, factually wrong, or if it's not understood your question.
And Taig says critically.
Critically prompting. That would be a verb, right? Yeah. Any others? So it's very difficult to get these verbs, which just one words describing what you're doing. And I think my focus has been on that itself, and the whole framework for collaborating with generative AI. I've been thinking as to what is it that I'm doing and what would I name it. So that's but to help give me this kind of ability to name it, I rightly or wrongly, I envisage the AI tool to be like a mind. Okay, I get it. It's not. It isn't a human thing, but I envisage it like this because it helped me then define the kind of activities I would like to do with it and to name it. Yeah, if I can do that, then I can also almost offload whatever I'm doing in my own head onto this tool, so that I can yeah, do some cognitive offloading, if you like, but in a controlled way, in a critical way, as Ty put it. So I see this as a generative AI mind. What I'm going to say a little bit more about this. And all of these nodes are basically a bit like the output coming out of the model on a particular topic. Okay, so this may be, I don't know, chemistry, that may be mathematics, or something else here, politics, and these are big sort of subject areas or domains, if you like, of knowledge that it's capable of producing. Right now, if you look at it from that big level to a smaller level, then that might be related information to that subject area, but maybe branching into something else, a little bit more detail in that other smaller blobs, but nearer blobs. Any of these blobs that are far away may not be as relevant to each other, and therefore they may not be related, or weakly related, or can be related but not understood as related, and so on and so forth. So that's how I see the GenAI mind. Now, if I've not really, deliberately I've put all of these as not shown as bright, or in this sort of gray color, is because I want you to see this as a mind which is currently not doing anything. It's just quiet. Okay, usually very hard to keep our minds quiet, right? You try and keep your mind for zero thought, and it wanders. This, I'm saying, generative AI, if you're not prompting it, let's say it's like this, it's quiet. So just to sort of reiterate how I see Gen AI mind is the vast space, a mesh of networks or concepts, which is in a state which has zero thought, which has got none of its nodes lit up, as it were, trying to generate active content or something that you can read, understand, etc. on the screen. So when you're not prompting it, it's a bit like that. And there was this paper by Vaswani and co. Saying attention is all you need. In my sort of analogy towards to generative AI, I see attention not as in the real sort of what the paper describes, but in the sense of lighting up one of the nodes, and making it move either in the local area of what you saw, or maybe taking it somewhere else in the brain, in the generative AI mind. So it is like a ball of light, which through my prompts, I could shine on different parts of the generative AI projected mind, if you like. So that's how I am really thinking about it. Now, to give you an example of this, what we're going to do is, do some kind of thought experiment, and we, not even an experiment, just I'll be saying things, and I hope you will be able to follow them. So I just want you to sit up a little bit, in a relaxed position, close your eyes, and just breathe in, right, and relax. And I want you to focus on the sounds that you can hear. You can hear my voice, maybe other things around you. Maybe there are things, that you can hear in your vicinity. Try and sort of get a sense of temperature in the room. Maybe it's quite warm, not so warm, etc. Now move your attention to the chair you're sitting on. Hopefully it's comfy. Maybe it isn't. Have a feel for that. Think about that. Now I'd like to move your attention to some kind of festival that you celebrate with your friends and family. I want you to think of one particular festival. What is your favorite memory of that festival? Try to relive that moment in your head. And who else is there in that memory with you? Is there anybody? Maybe during the festival, somebody is offering you some food. Did you enjoy that? Try to relive that moment for a second. Was the food that you were offered, was it sweet or was it savory? So now I would like you to come back and look at the screen. So what you've just done is you have regenerated an experience from your memory, from your lived experience in your own mind through my prompts. Maybe you didn't have a favorite festival to celebrate. I don't know. Maybe. I'm just saying. Maybe you didn't meet anybody in that memory, and that's when maybe you were forced to do some kind of generation, which would be classed as, in the case of GPT, maybe a hallucination or something, right? So the point I'm trying to say is that through my prompts, you moved the attention to areas and generated some content. And where you did have the content, you were able to generate. Where you didn't have the content from your past experience, you weren't able to generate that. Maybe you still filled in that space with something. So, and the other thing to note here in the prompts is I'm using the keywords again and again, because when I said think of a festival, you may have thought about maybe Christmas or something else. And then that, again, I asked you in my next prompt, I said, what is your favorite memory about such a festival? So it could be, you thought about that in the context of Christmas again. And then who else was there in your memory? Again, we're talking about relationship with previously used or previously generated things. And that's important because in a prompt scenario, we all know that when we're having conversation with the chat tools, it has a memory. It has a context window in which it remembers what was said and what's not said, and so on and so forth. So, which then is used to predict the next output based on your next prompt. So we keep that in mind. So this kind of prompting, I named it mind surfing. The reason is we start at a very broad sort of area, and then it generates something, and then from that broad area we pick little finer details and we progress the prompting. And we are literally just like when we surf the internet, we have links and hyperlinks on one page that takes you to another. So we are going kind of from a very broad area, let's say maths, and then from maths to complex numbers, and complex numbers into something different like IQ. So we are going from a broad to a very narrow direction. And I call that a process as mind surfing, because you're really literally getting the knowledge out of the GenAI mind on a particular topic, but we are starting at a very broad point. So there is no prompt framework here. We're just going from a very broad to a very narrow sort of prompting stages. And as I prompted you, if you recall what happened, your awareness was moving from, perhaps in the beginning you were thinking about sounds or your senses, and then from there I moved you into some part of your memory in which you had some memory about a festival, and so on and so forth. And you were able to mind surf your own brain. Okay. Now compare that with this. I don't know if you can see the bottom part of my slides. Maybe not. Um, Let me just. Yeah, I can't see it. Yeah, there you go. There it is. Yeah. What is your favorite? If I ask you a question now, what is your favorite food? Is it the same thing that came up in the memory over there? And what urges did you have right now, in deciding whether it is should I just think about the same thing, or should I think about what really is my favorite food, and so on and so forth. So this is kind of what I'm saying, is this is the difference between asking a direct prompt versus asking a prompt that develops from a very broad space, gradually going down using the words that were outputted by the model, and going further. So your prompts, basically, in other words, are your control to light up a particular part of this so-called GenAI brain, as I'm saying, or mind. And yeah, so I've been talking about this, going from broad to narrow. So once you've lit up this particular node in the GenAI mind, you are then going within this area, within this small area, and further prompting, going deeper, trying to pull out relevant information in that area itself, using the words of the GenAI output itself. A good prompt for mind surfing is something like, what is there to learn? Maybe you want to try this in your screens, in a model. Try prompting it to say, what is there to learn about? And fill in the blank after that to some subject, right? That's of interest to you. And once you have done that, it will give you, I don't know, 8 or 10, 20 different topics. And I want you to use one of those topics in particular. Just copy the text that has come out and say something like, what further details? I don't know what you're seeing on the screen. So maybe you could ask something saying, can you expand on this? And in inverted commas, you can copy and paste the topic that it produced in your last response. And by doing that, you are increasing the probabilities of what gets generated after, to be more relevant to what you're interested in generating out. So any thoughts up until now? I mean, once you've done that, listen to if people are putting any thoughts.
Yeah, if I was just waiting for the minute to pop in. Mike is, so the initial question was, why use the metaphor of mind and experience when they don't fit a language learning model, large language model, LLM? And he makes the point that they are trained to lie if they don't know. And then the last comment was, it's dangerous for people to take this metaphor literally. So there's some other comments about how the metaphor is unusual and people haven't thought about things like that. And it's been likened to meditation by Emma as well. But I think in terms of sort of points of discussion, I think maybe at the end, Mike, I don't know if you'd want to come in on the microphone and just give us some more of your thoughts so Manish can hear and see what you both think. Or now, if we're waiting for people to have a go at the exercise.
Yeah, I think the issue is, for example, I don't know if anyone's tried DeepSeek, which has come out and hit the headlines. I mean, if you ask it anything about China, it's been trained by the Chinese government. And there is a real danger of people who don't understand how large language models work are starting to think they do have experience, they do have understanding, rather than that they're generating bullshit half the time. Other times, if they've managed to generate something which they've was in the training data, it could be, quite useful. But there is a real danger of metaphors. I mean, for example, if you try and teach about electricity using water flow model in pipes, and you don't explain to students this is really dangerous, you'll kill yourself if you get electrocuted with water. So that a metaphor is great if you actually understand the limitations.
Yes, absolutely. I think your point about DeepSeek is very relevant. And what I would like to say is that, as I said in the beginning of the session, that this kind of prompting is pre-reasoning models. Okay, and you may have, if you are using pre-reasoning models, this kind of prompting is going to help generate the kind of information which actually the reasoning models are generating. Because I mean I haven't gone through all the different metaphors, and the metaphors are really just as a starting point to help you immerse and to help you understand what happens when you do it. Okay, so really I'm not saying that this is a human mind. I'm just saying that this is a mind which is not conscious, which is not able to think on its own. It's a framework for doing something together. So your agency is prime in this way of using generative AI, right? And it's not suitable for post O1 models, because that one the prompting is very complicated, and it happens inside anyways. So what we are doing is we are just simply going from a broad topic and gradually trying to pull out much more finer details for that topic. Okay, and the control is in our hands rather than it being a conscious mind, as I said in the abstract for the talk. Okay, is there anything else in the chat? Like when people did use that prompt that I gave, did it give them the bullshit, or did they give it some kind of very, very abstract overview of the subject area? And were they able to then pull out information, a little bit more relevant information, by following it up and digging it a little bit deeper, using the output in terms of the same language that the model throw out at you? Is there any comments on that? Lucinda, is there any chat messages on the output that people are trying?
I forgot to unmute myself. I was saying not on that so far, but people may have been listening to the debate that was going on.
Sure.
So do people have another couple of minutes to just give it?
No, that's fine. I think people can chip in at any point with that. So what I said, that if you are using mind surfing, what you're doing is you're going at a very broad area. So say something like, what is there to learn about a topic X? And this could be quite useful for students actually, because it will then say that this subject has these things that are important, and then you get you pick a particular output from the particular sentence from the output of the GenAI, and then use it to dig a bit deeper. So you're surfing as if this is a linked concept. You're going from one broad area to another. Now, to address some of the points that were raised about it can generate things that might not be related to you. Remember, I asked you earlier, what do you do when it gives you a wrong output? So somebody asked that, is it wrong as in factually incorrect, or is it wrong as in doesn't meet your own prompt's requirement? Now, with a generic prompt like what is there to learn about X, the likelihood of it misunderstanding it could be as simple as, let's say the word matrix. I said, what is there to learn about matrix? And then it starts to spit out thing about the movie Matrix. It is possible because it has a probability attached to it, but it could be that it's talking about maths, and maybe I wanted to hear the maths stuff, and it will tell me all the maths related stuff. And if that is the case, then that's absolutely brilliant. I don't need to do much of what I call as mind mending. And I'm sort of here saying your agency is prime in this way of using GenAI. You are going to control what goes forward in the context window from this prompt onwards. The first prompt, which is what is there to learn about X, let's say, and you will say, let's say it comes up with the right stuff about the mathematical topic of matrices, and you really don't want to cover everything that it has said. Let's say only 3 topics out of which you want to create notes on. So going forward, you wouldn't let the other topics still be in the conversation. You could just simply say, for going forward, I would like to focus only on, and again, copy and paste the 3 topics that you want, so that the maths that is going to help the model get to where you want to go is not disturbed by using, let's say, some of your own language, because you might say something which it then misinterprets and puts something else out. So anyways, so with mind bending, what I'm saying is you are controlling the next, whatever happens next in your conversation with the generative AI tool that you're using, to have just the topics that you are going to be producing something on, maybe content, maybe questions, maybe slides. I don't know. As an academic, you may be doing any of those things. So you choose the topics, and you could maybe then create different things. Now, a third metaphor that I use is that of mind bending, and the mind bending is simply saying that you take the different nodes in this generative AI mind, as it was, like these 2 nodes, and you try and bring them together in your prompt. Now, what these 2 nodes are, one of them could be just maths, let's say. Okay, this could be maths. This could be matrices even, right? And then this could be maybe a pedagogical zone where all the information about pedagogy or all the probabilities related to pedagogies are triggered if you use the right words. So let's say you used learning outcomes. I don't know, that's a pedagogical term. You could then ask it to create a learning outcome on the topic that you're interested in, or the subtopic that you're interested in, at, let's say, the right level of higher education, further education, whatever level you're working on. So that would be a very expected way of generating a learning outcome. You would think about the topic, you'd think about what you want students to be able to demonstrate, and then you'll write a learning outcome. Now, you know from your training what learning outcome is and what it contains. However, the GenAI is also able to do that for you, but by bringing in together terms that invokes the right what you call it, the interpreted meaning, it will generate that learning outcome for you. Okay, but equally you could use it in a very unexpected way as well. You could instead of doing pedagogical stuff with matrices, you could use matrices in some kind of other application. I don't know, maybe in image processing or something else. So you could be bringing together 2 very different fields, 2 unusual fields as well. Maybe image processing is another usual field, but maybe something else as well. So that might generate something quite likely to be not very useful, because but it may sometimes give you something useful. The creativity comes out in that way of using it in an unexpected way. And I think that's probably what your chain of thought models, which are post O1 models, as I kept saying that this is good for before. If you're not paying for these models, and if you use this step-by-step technique, the output can still be quite relevant, very good for your use. And if you're using O1, for example, it would try and find the best output for you. It will do multiple directions, and it will in the end choose the one for you, and therein you lose some of your agency, I would say. Okay, so you may be able to tease out even from DeepSeek some things that it's trying to hide or is trying to not talk about. Okay, if you prompted it, in a different, continuously, like different ways, you might be able to make it. And you've heard, and seen many examples of people making GenAI outside its guardrails, and so on and so forth. But when you're talking about post-O1 models, they are a bit more, the control is anyways in the hands of that system. It thinks for you, it interprets something for you, and presents you the output, rather than giving you the chance to control which direction the thinking goes. So in doing this, basically what you're doing is you are offloading, in the case of, let's say, learning outcome design, you're offloading your own way of working, how you create. You may choose those kind of words when you're writing the prompt. A learning outcome, you can create that, and basically you've offloaded that cognitive work onto generative AI, and you may benefit from its wider knowledge. You may bring in, therefore, it as a collaborator which understands what you want it to do, or not understands, but which is capable to replicate the kind of outputs that you would have created yourself, but in a faster way, and also be benefited by any other knowledge that it may have, and perhaps you haven't given it a thought about, that sort of thing. Because it will do what it does. It tries and formulate an answer. It looks at your prompt, uses attention to understand what the prompt is about, and give you an answer. But if you're using it in this way, you have more agency in what comes out. Okay, so then I have been running this training session for staff across my faculty, but also outside the university where I work. And I've collected some of their experiences during, sort of, before and after the training session. So I give them all the prompts that I give them, and I get them to create things like learning outcomes, lecture notes, multiple choice questions, and then I ask them the final output that you see on the screen. Are you happy to use that with your students, or are you going to still be working on it, and then perhaps you will use it, or whatever? And they get a chance to sort of reflect on that in qualitative comments as well as quantitative way, via survey. So so far I have data from 42 staff members. 35.7% were male and 64.3% female. That's their age and experience sort of scatter plot. There was one retired person as well. I mean, obviously everybody was welcome. So in the session, and the session was conducted online. And I used a Google spreadsheet to create those prompts for each participant, so they could just copy and paste the prompt. But it was dynamic, because they could type in a part, let's say, what is there to learn about X, and X they could type in, and the prompt will be created for them on the spreadsheet, and they just have to copy and paste it into the chat tool that they're using. Histogram of age profile is like this. As you can see, people are in this area, the majority of them, and so on. Okay, I'm unable to read the chat messages, so if there's anything that catches your eye, Lucinda, please let me know. Yeah, in terms of various backgrounds, subject backgrounds, this is where people came from, in this study. Computing, life sciences, forensics, psychology, learning development, sports, nursing, engineering, policing, business. So because my faculty is science, engineering, and social sciences altogether. But there's outside the faculty people were there as well. So yeah, different subjects. So this is the split of that. What you see on the screen now is what their familiarity with the GenAI tool was when they started. So some obviously right in the middle, some not at all familiar, some very, very familiar. But again, it's almost like a normal curve. I haven't tested it for normality and so on. But as you can see, the shape is quite similar to that. And then this is them saying, will they integrate GenAI into the tool and into their teaching and learning after the event? So that's like that. In terms of their confidence, we did some multiple choice question design using the prompts in a very sort of step-by-step detailed way, using the mind metaphor framework. And this is where they were at the end of the training. So the ones who said they're not as confident yet after the event of the training, the reasons were, one of them said more training needed. So they just were very early into the use of it. One reason was not stated. And the other one said they had additional needs, so visual sort of issues, and it became difficult for them to follow everything that I did because I'm using quite a lot of screens and stuff like that, and not everything had a good accessibility to it. I would say. So I offered them a separate session in a different time. Okay. So then we have overall satisfaction from the workshop being 4.5 and satisfaction with the technique for MCQ design. There are many prompts available for designing MCQs, but this is the way I went about doing this, was going all the way from mind surfing to mind mending to even mind bending and a bit more of mind mending and sort of doing some iterations. I show them. You'll see some other results which will give you a little bit more insight into the process, but I'm happy to run that kind of training if needed in any other institution. Please do contact me afterwards. But yeah, so this is a second part of the experiment. When once I've done the training, I thought, yeah, I've got all the data, but then I realized, oh, maybe I should compare what their expectations were, because somebody mentioned that before in the beginning. Are their prompts, generating what people actually expected or not, and how good this system, this kind of prompting is in that. So what I did was I said, okay, let's do a pre of that. Let's do a beginning in the very early stages of the prompting mechanism. Let's do the one mindsurf prompt and ask people to, and before even they see the results of that, actually ask people what do they expect by running the prompt, what is there to learn about my subject, right? Whatever subject they put in. What do they expect the tool to spit out, the ChatGPT or whatever they're using, okay? And they wrote down 6 topics, maybe 12 topics, depending on how generous people were feeling to share the data. That's what their expectations were. And then I said, okay, now run the prompt and see what happens. Now, what you see here, the data here, we had the observed agreement of about 71%, which means generally it's okay. But if you see, this is a median score. Okay, so there were scores which are above that, and there were scores which are below that, saying that when people are creating their prompts and having an expectation, some of them get it just about right, some of them get it very right, some of them get it very, very wrong, basically. So people don't spend time enough to think about what is it that they actually want, and is that what the prompt is saying. So that's quite important. That came out from this. But then my immediate next step is mind mending. I said, well, if that's the case, if for those of you who got the output that you wanted, brilliant, you don't need enough advice from this point on. But for people who didn't, obviously you could then nudge it as I was saying earlier, people try to nudge it to a certain direction. Again, very important to know what that direction is. That do you know what you expect from it, and then nudge it accordingly, and it will start to give you some sort of output that's useful. Anyways, so we go from mind surfing, where people start to come close and close to the topic that they want to create content on. So matrices, maybe some kind of calculations on dot multiplication of matrix product, dot product, and so on and so forth. So whatever it is that they want to do, that if you go using mind surfing technique, you are able to see some content on the screen. Now, from that content, you may then ask it to create a learning outcome, and using the principles of constructive alignment, obviously you can then say, okay, based on these learning outcomes, what could be my notes, what are the common mistakes in these areas, and then therefore using pedagogical sort of design of multiple choice questions, you could ask it to generate some multiple choice questions. So going through all of that, at the end, obviously I asked people as to how satisfied they were on the learning outcomes. So everybody pretty much spent time reading it and said, well, that's perfectly usable. And lecture notes, again, that is quite detailed. This is verbose, as somebody said earlier. I would say people would need to spend more time to think on, but generally they were positive about it. Common mistake was the biggest one, because when my prompts gave them the common mistakes to their subject, I almost always saw a ear-to-ear, grin, smile on experienced lecturers' faces that they could relate to. That yes, in my experience, these are the kind of mistakes students make. And I said to them, look, if you have seen something that you don't agree with, well, you don't have to take it forward. You can always do mind mending, and you could say, well, I'm gonna drop that one from the next stage, which is creating questions. Okay. Or if you have some from your own experience, something which and it has not been covered, just say it verbally and add it, or not verbally, type it into the context window, so that when you create your next question, when you create your questions, the mistakes are informing the distractors. So yeah, that's how this was. Okay, so I'll stop and take questions if there are any in the chat, Lucinda. That's all I think I had to share today.
Yeah, we do. So I'm just thinking it was Emma asks whether you did a follow-up to see if the lecturers were still using the AI in their teaching further along after the training.
Yes, I think throughout the training, the response was very, very positive. And then I mean, anecdotally, basically, I didn't do a follow-up per se, but I have been then going back into their departments to do more of the same for other people. And people have invited me to take the training and deliver it again to other people, those who couldn't attend.
And there's also been a bit of a debate about bias in AIs depending on where they are developed as well. So I don't know if you have any thoughts on that.
In particular, if you let me know, I'll have a look. Which question from whom?
So it wasn't so much a question; it was a debate between the participants.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I'd say mind bending is your friend over there. If you see something that you don't agree with, you don't have to continue processing that information. You could simply say, I don't agree. I would like to think this. Right? That way you inject and you keep your agency. You inject your knowledge and you keep your agency, and the tool will be very happy, I think, to continue with yours, because these tools are really written in such a way that allows, but that really gets under your skin and makes you want to use it more. So if you don't agree with something, be critical, as Tig was saying earlier. You remain critical, and that's how you keep your agency. So yeah, I would say that's the way forward if you see something like that.
So I think that was the outcome of the discussion, and just reflecting again on how important it is that we teach our students to use their critical facilities rather than just accepting.
Can I just? I've written it in the chat. But one thing that GenAI is brilliant at, and it's brilliant at it because of the way it's being created by just creating links between words. If you ask it, if you have, let's say, a student or who's got a particular interest in a topic and isn't interested in your subject, if you actually say to the GenAI, as I put there, can you give a football analogy to explain quantum physics? It will do it. And it's brilliant at creating metaphors because the way it's been freely created with how words link to other words, it can take a topic and then transfer it into another field. Try it. It's great fun doing that.
Yeah. Thank you for sharing that with us, Meg.
Did anybody else have any other questions for Manish before we finish up? Please feel free to come in on the mics as well. No? Well, thank you so much, everybody, for coming, and thank you so much, Manish, for such an intriguing presentation. I think I'm definitely going to go and try it and see if I can get some of my law students to.
Yeah, and I'll be happy to come around and train your staff if that's what you want. Please.
It'd be brilliant. I'll raise it and see if that's something I can organise. Be fantastic.
Super. Thank you so much, everyone, for your lively debate and contributions and questions and comments. So thank you, and hopefully we'll see you sometime again for the next Tech Thursday. Thank you.